all in your head. Every thought, every fear, every whispered paranoia, gnawing at the back of your mind. It's a creation of your own making, a labyrinth of shadows and illusions that only you can see. But here's the twist. What lives in the mind feels more real than anything outside it. The world can throw its weight, try to break you with its brute force, but nothing can twist the soul quite like what's within. The mind is a battlefield littered with phantoms, memories, fears that never rest. All your nightmares, your doubts, they stem from within, and there's no running from them, no hiding. You are both the prisoner and the warden. Reality is a frail construct, easily shattered by the lens through which you view it. Those who understand this wield an immense power. They bend perception, turn pain into strength, use despair as fuel. They know that the world itself may be indifferent, cold, uncaring, but the mind, it's a weapon, a tool that can redefine everything you touch. In your head lies the power to create worlds, to rewrite reality, to shatter limitations others set for you. Most people are slaves to their thoughts, lost in a maze they didn't build, haunted by fears they refuse to face. But those who master this inner landscape, they become unstoppable. Every limitation, every boundary you believe exists is nothing more than a mental construct, a cage made of ideas and beliefs. But the irony is, the cage is unlocked. It was always unlocked. All it takes is a single moment of clarity, a willingness to stare into the void and question everything, to see that the walls keeping you in place were built by your own hands, brick by brick, out of fear, out of self-doubt. The world doesn't need to hold you back when you're already doing it for yourself. The real enemy is the part of you that refuses to let go of those chains. The mind plays tricks, spins illusions, entangles you in webs of your own design. It's a beautiful, terrifying paradox. What you fear, what you crave, what you avoid, all live in the same dark corner of your mind, whispering stories of failure, of rejection, of defeat. And most are content to listen, to be swept away by the tales spun by their own thoughts. But if you can silence that noise, if you can cut through the web of illusions and stare into the bare, raw core of who you are, then, and only then, do you begin to see the power that lies within. Freedom isn't out there, waiting in some distant dream. It's in your head, locked within the very thoughts you choose to believe or destroy. Every nightmare, every limitation, every wound, they're not shackles, they're keys. But few have the courage to look at their demons and realize they were never chained to begin with. Those who do, those who dare to confront the shadows within, they find a strength that no force outside can rival. The battle was always in the mind. The cage was always an illusion, and the path to freedom, it's there, in the darkest parts of yourself, waiting. Life has a brutal simplicity to it, a set of options that seem deceptively small, but hold the weight of every decision you'll ever make. 3 choices, no more, no less. You can change it, you can accept it, or you can leave it. Every situation, every struggle, every torment, distilled down to these primal acts. Yet, people complicate it, dance around the edges of choice, weaving webs of indecision and hoping somehow, miraculously, things will shift without them having to act. But that hesitation, that unwillingness to choose, to commit, is the very birthplace of suffering. It's the slow poison that rots ambition, the paralysis that makes dreams bleed dry. change. It's a seductive option, laced with danger and potential. To change something requires strength, will, the courage to look at reality and bend it to your design. But it's the choice of the warrior, the one willing to face resistance, to clash against the current and reshape it. Change doesn't come easily. It demands sacrifice, a willingness to break what is in order to build what could be. Few have the stomach for it. They look at the mountain of effort and turn away, letting inertia decide their fate. Change is power, but it's reserved for those willing to pay its price in blood, sweat, and tears. Then there's acceptance, often mistaken for surrender by those who misunderstand its strength. To accept is not to bow, not to give in, but to stare directly into the eyes of reality and say, I know what you are, and I choose to live with it. Acceptance is a choice, a conscious act of defiance, to walk through the fire unflinching, knowing you will emerge on the other side, forged by the flames. It's the calm resolve of one who understands that some battles are not worth fighting, that some forces are beyond change. Acceptance is not weakness, it's wisdom. The wisdom to conserve your strength, to choose your wars carefully, to acknowledge what cannot be moved, and move forward anyway. And then there is the exit, the cold, clean clarity of leaving. To leave is to release yourself from the chains, to walk away without looking back, to choose freedom over comfort, liberation over stagnation. It's the path of the relentless, the ones who refuse to settle for half measures, who understand that sometimes the only way to win is to refuse to play. To leave is an act of rebellion, a refusal to be bound by anything that does not serve your purpose. It's the courage to break the ties that suffocate, to let go of what no longer has a place in your story. The misery comes when people refuse to commit to any of these choices. They linger, hoping for a fourth option, an easy path that demands nothing and offers everything. They wish for change but refuse to act, despise what is but lack the strength to leave, resent their reality but refuse to accept it. They live in the torment of indecision, clinging to what they despise, trapped in a cage of their own making, imprisoned by the fear of choosing. It's this state of limbo, of being suspended between choices, that breeds the deepest misery. There's no peace in indecision, no progress, no relief, only the slow erosion of self. In the end, the torment is of their own design, a punishment for refusing to embrace the brutal simplicity of life's choices, to change, to accept, or to leave. These are the only paths, the only acts that can break the chains of misery. Anything else is just an illusion, a stalling tactic, a slow surrender to a life unfulfilled. When standing at the crossroads of choice, torn between two paths, the instinct is to drift toward comfort, to seek refuge in the easier path. But that easy road is a trap, a seductive illusion that blinds you to the long shadows of regret lying in wait. The mind, in all its cunning, overestimates the sting of immediate pain and grossly underestimates the slow poison of future suffering. Hyperbolic discounting, the mind's trickery, the sinister little dance that leads you to believe that tomorrow's pain is someone else's problem, while today's discomfort is unbearable. But those who understand the nature of this deception, those who can see through the smokescreen of ease, they know the way forward, and it lies through the fire, not around it. Choosing the harder path is an act of rebellion against the mind's default wiring, an act of defiance against its whispering promise of ease. The painful path, the one that requires sacrifice, resilience, grit, that's the path that shapes you. Every struggle, every hardship, every moment of discomfort is an investment, a down payment on the strength you'll wield tomorrow. Pain in the short term is a test, a gateway that demands courage, but what it offers in return is priceless. Growth, transformation, a spine forged in the heat of your own resistance. Choosing difficulty isn't masochism, it's mastery. It's understanding that today's pain is the price of tomorrow's power. To choose the difficult path is to turn against the natural instinct to preserve, to protect, to settle. It's a statement, an affirmation that you are not here to be comfortable, but to be unstoppable. The mind will resist, scream even, trying to pull you back toward comfort, toward inertia. But those who choose the harder road are the ones who don't flinch in the face of immediate pain, who understand that comfort today becomes a prison tomorrow. They recognize that real suffering doesn't come from the choice that hurts now. It comes from the regret of not having chosen it when they had the chance. In that moment of decision, when faced with two roads, the easy and the hard, remember this: the easy path is lined with the bones of those who settled, who avoided the discomfort, who paid the long-term price for the short-term relief. The harder path may leave scars, may demand blood and sweat, but it builds something unbreakable, something that time cannot erode. The easy choice is seductive, soft, a whisper of comfort that dulls your potential. The hard choice is ruthless, unyielding, but it awakens something primal, something that knows how to thrive in chaos. By choosing the path of resistance, of difficulty, you outwit the mind's games, sidestep the traps of short-term thinking. It's a war against the weakest parts of yourself, against the comfort-seeking parasite within. When you walk the painful path willingly, you declare dominion over your own mind, proving that you are master, not servant. This is the crucible where strength is born, where future suffering is traded for present discipline. In the end, those who walk this path may carry the scars, but they also carry the unshakable knowledge that they face the fire willingly and emerge stronger for it. The easy path requires nothing. The hard path requires everything. But in that sacrifice lies freedom, a life unbound by the chains of comfort, untouched by the whispers of regret. To choose the hard road is to make a pact with yourself, to honor the potential you carry, to live a life that does not shy away from the very pain that would set you free. The real truths, the ones that cut to the core of existence, are not for open declaration. They are heresies, forbidden knowledge that goes against the grain of comfort, of consensus, of everything people cling to for stability. These truths live in the shadows, not because they lack power, but because they hold too much of it. To utter them aloud, to give them to the masses, would be to shatter the delicate illusions that keep society docile. These truths are buried, cloaked in whispers, waiting for those with the courage or the madness to seek them out, to confront the dark abyss of understanding that lies beyond mere words. One does not stumble upon these heresies by accident. They are sought relentlessly by those willing to descend into the dark places of the mind, where most fear to tread. The real secrets of life are not written in glowing text for everyone to consume. They are hidden in fragments, scattered through the pages of obscure books, etched into the scars of those who dare to live by them. These truths cannot be taught. They are too volatile, too primal, to be molded into neat, digestible platitudes. They demand sacrifice, demand that one leave behind the comfort of ignorance. To discover these truths is to walk through fire, to allow the illusions to burn away, layer by fragile layer. People cling to socially approved lies, to comforting narratives, to the ideas that fit neatly within the boundaries of safety. They crave validation, not revelation. But those who hunger for something real, something that strips the world bare, know that real knowledge is a dangerous beast. It does not seek approval, does not bend to fit within the narrow walls of convention. It hides because it must. It hides because the world would tear itself apart if it glimpsed even a fraction of what lies beneath the surface. Only the few who dare to descend into the depths can glimpse these heresies, whisper them into the silence, and carry the weight of knowing. These truths require secrecy, not out of shame, but out of necessity. For to bring them into the light would be to risk setting fire to the delicate fabric of what most consider reality. They are preserved in whispers, exchanged in darkened rooms, hidden between the lines of forbidden texts. They're the heresies that laugh in the face of what society holds dear, mocking the shallowness of popular belief. Those who know are marked, set apart, burdened by the gravity of what they have discovered. They are both liberated and cursed, bound to a path that cannot be shared, a journey only the few can understand. Reading these truths does not grant understanding. It merely opens a door. The real journey is what happens beyond that door, in the quiet of solitude, in the depths of reflection. For these heresies demand introspection, a ruthless dismantling of everything you once held as sacred. They challenge every preconceived notion, every boundary, every rule. They exist beyond morality, beyond tradition, beyond the comfortable limits of the mind. And those who carry them do so with caution, for they know these truths cannot be wielded lightly. They are weapons, sharp as razors, dangerous to those who are unprepared to face their consequences. In the end, the real heresies are not secrets to be shared with the world. They are the foundations of a different kind of existence, a realm hidden from those who seek only comfort. These truths live and breathe in the shadows, shaping those who dare to find them into something else entirely. And in those quiet moments, when the world fades and the echoes of the mundane are left behind, these truths are felt, known, and understood by those who are willing to descend far enough to grasp them. They are not spoken. They are simply lived, carved into the soul, a silent, eternal defiance against the lie. Emotions are the veil draped over reality, softening the harsh lines, blurring the edges, painting over the cracks with illusions of comfort. They lull you into a dreamscape, a fragile fantasy where everything is bearable, where you can hide from what lurks beneath. They blind, distract, twist every glance, every touch, every word, until you're no longer looking at what is, but at what you desperately want it to be. Emotions are the cage of the mind, a sedative that keeps you from seeing the cold, sharp architecture of reality. They allow you to live in a delusion, to construct a version of events that soothes, that forgives, that avoids the raw truth lying just beneath the surface. But reality has a way of breaking through, clawing its way past every lie, every illusion. Emotions can mask the truth, but they cannot kill it. Slowly, silently, reality waits, creeping closer as the cracks begin to widen, as the fabric of your fantasy starts to tear. And then, all at once, it strikes. The illusion shatters, leaving you face to face with what you had tried so desperately to ignore. Suffering begins not because of what reality is, but because of how fiercely you resisted it. This suffering, this brutal awakening, is the cost of living behind the veil, of indulging in emotions that only serve to protect you from seeing the depths of the world as it is. The fantasy crumbles, and what's left is the raw wound of reality, the naked truth laid bare. There is no comfort in this, no reprieve. It's a harsh, violent revelation. The moment when you realize that the world is not what you painted it to be, that people are not who you imagined, that your own life is not as safe as you thought. Emotions, for all their charm, are treacherous allies. They allow you to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel justified, while the real world waits, quietly watching as you weave your web of lies. And then, in one fell swoop, it rips it all away, leaving nothing but the cold, merciless clarity of reality. This is the pain of awakening, the price of living a life dictated by what you feel instead of what is. Emotions shield you, but they also bind you, keeping you from seeing the world with eyes unclouded by desire, by attachment, by fear. To live in emotion is to live in chains, to be forever at the mercy of illusions that keep you safe but blind. Only when those illusions break, only when you are forced to see, does the suffering begin. This suffering is not a punishment, it's a reckoning. It's the painful process of adjusting your mind to reality, of stripping away the softness, the comfort, the lies. It's the agony of seeing for the first time. For those who live in fantasy, emotions are a trap, a drug that keeps them numb, a poison that dulls the blade of reality. They may hide from pain, but they also hide from life, from depth, from the cold beauty of existence, unfiltered by the haze of feeling. And when the veil lifts, when the emotions can no longer hold back the weight of reality, they are left defenseless, forced to confront the raw, unyielding truth they had so carefully avoided. Suffering, in this sense, is not the enemy. It's the final act of liberation, the shattering of the illusions that kept you chained. To see without emotion, to gaze into reality stripped bare, is to finally be free, to stand outside the prison of fantasy and view life as it truly is. This clarity is painful, unforgiving, but it's real. Emotions are the chains, the shackles that bind you to comforting lies, but suffering, that brutal awakening, is the key. It's the path to a life unclouded, a vision untainted, a mind unbound. Accountability for your judgment is the weight that separates the powerful from the weak. Judgment isn't mere opinion or passing thought. It's the sharpened blade forged by wisdom. And wisdom is no gift. It's earned, sculpted in the fires of experience, in the relentless clash of action and consequence. It's the ability to see through the fog, to slice clean through illusion, to stand unshaken in a world that thrives on deception. And yet, judgment comes with a price, a toll that few are willing to pay, because once you claim it, you are bound by it. To possess judgment is to bear the responsibility of wielding it with ruthless precision. Wisdom doesn't emerge from a single stroke of insight. It's carved through experience, through trial and error, through relentless iterations, each cycle refining, sharpening, making you quicker, stronger, clearer. The path to wisdom is one of brutal repetition, an ongoing spiral that cuts deeper with each turn. Experience compresses time, accelerates understanding, amplifies judgment. Those who grasp this seek experience as others seek comfort. They immerse themselves in risk, in failure, in the darkest corners of reality, knowing that every scar, every lesson, every failure is another brick in the foundation of their judgment. They forge wisdom, not by waiting for it to come, but by hunting it down and dragging it from the shadows. Yet, judgment is more than accumulated knowledge. It's the discerning blade, the ruthless sifting through of the essential and the irrelevant, the true and the illusory. It's the willingness to look at the world, at others, at yourself, without flinching. To make decisions that defy convenience, that stare into the face of risk and do not falter. Those who are accountable for their judgment understand that every choice is a reflection of their own depth, their own commitment to mastery. They do not blame the world, do not shy from their own decisions. Judgment is power, and it demands accountability with an iron fist. Accountability for judgment means there is no one else to blame. It's acceptance that every decision, every failure, every scar is yours to own. People avoid accountability because it means taking on the full weight of their choices, standing alone in the aftermath without excuses. But those who embrace this weight, who bear it with strength, become something more. They transcend the fear of judgment, the anxiety of failure, the weakness of uncertainty. They are masters of their own mind, sharpened by experience, honed by repetition, untouchable in their clarity. The shallow avoid judgment, fearing its consequences, but those who wield it understand it's not about being right. It's about learning, evolving, iterating. Every failure, every misstep is just another lesson in the forge. Judgment is a journey, not a destination, an unyielding path of refinement where wisdom is never static, always evolving. And those who understand this, who take on the mantle of accountability, find freedom in its weight. They learn to trust themselves in the dark, to make decisions with unwavering conviction, for they know that their wisdom, their judgment, is their weapon, their armor, their legacy. It's not a gift given lightly, nor a burden carried easily, but for those who bear it, it is the mark of one who lives beyond the ordinary, beyond the trivial, forging their path with the razor edge of wisdom. Society thrives on confusion, on the blurred lines between purpose and distraction, on people who drift aimlessly, unaware of their own minds, content to follow shadows rather than carve out their own path. It's a machine, fueled by the complacency of those who sleepwalk through life, oblivious to their own potential, blind to the depths of their minds. The gears turn on ignorance, on people who have no idea what they want, no clear vision to guide them. The system molds them, shapes them, feeds them desires, not born from within, but planted like seeds in fertile, unsuspecting minds. Those who know what they want are dangerous, unpredictable. They don't fit into neat little boxes. They don't comply with the silent rules society imposes. They defy the structure, disrupt the delicate balance that keeps everyone subdued. Society relies on people staying unaware, distracted, enthralled by trivialities, convinced that the next promotion, the next purchase, the next hollow accomplishment will bring fulfillment. It's a brilliant trick, really. A spectacle designed to keep minds from wandering too far, from seeking answers that might dismantle the very foundation society stands on. Those who truly understand their mental faculties, who see through the charade, become immune to it. They're the outliers, the ones who have tasted a freedom that cannot be bought, a clarity that no illusion can touch. The system doesn't want people who think deeply, who question, who dig into the recesses of their own minds. It wants obedience, silence, a herd that moves without question. The masses are easier to control when they don't know themselves, when they haven't unraveled the complexities of their own desires. People who fail to understand their minds are pawns, easily manipulated, predictable, moving in patterns that serve the interests of those who pull the strings. The uninformed mind is a playground for control, for subtle influences that shape every thought, every decision, every belief. It's a dark symphony, a beautifully orchestrated prison, and most are unaware they're even in chains. To understand oneself, to truly know one's desires, to break down the mechanics of one's mind, this is the ultimate rebellion. It's the first step out of the maze, the beginning of autonomy. But society ensures that this path is rarely taken. It fills every empty space with noise, distractions, comforts, all to keep people numb, all to keep them from asking the dangerous questions, from peeling back the layers and confronting the stark reality beneath. People chase validation, approval, applause, never stopping to ask whether any of it aligns with their true purpose, if such a purpose even exists beyond the roles they've been handed. They're slaves to a narrative they didn't write, prisoners to a life they didn't choose. The rare ones who escape, who understand the power of a mind unclouded, they become outcasts, misfits. Society has no place for those who see beyond its charade. They walk a different path, unbound, untamed, living by a code of their own making. They know the weight of their own choices, the magnitude of their potential, the depths of their own darkness. They are not swayed by societal whims, not driven by shallow desires. They are dangerous because they cannot be controlled, cannot be swayed by the illusions society feeds so willingly to the masses. A world where people knew themselves, where people understood their own minds, would be a world beyond control. A world too wild, too free, too full of people living with purpose, with clarity, with force. And that's the greatest threat to a society built on passivity, on people who drift, who comply, who settle. For those who see clearly, who understand their own minds, are bound by nothing. Compassion for oneself is not a pardon, not an escape from accountability. It is an understanding, a silent acceptance that we are both the architect and the casualty of our own choices. True compassion cuts through the illusions of blame and punishment, stripping away the layers of self-hatred that cloud judgment, that poison every attempt at growth. To see oneself clearly, to accept one's flaws without turning them into shackles, is not weakness. It is power. The power to act with clarity, to respond to life with unclouded eyes, unburdened by the weight of self-loathing. It's a weapon, forged not to evade responsibility, but to carry it with steady hands. Self-hatred is the prison, the poison that keeps people from becoming what they could be. It blinds, distorts, traps them in cycles of guilt and shame, chaining them to the mistakes of the past. It fills every action with doubt, every decision with hesitation, tainting the very essence of growth. Without compassion, the mind turns on itself, becomes a battlefield, a place of endless conflict, where the self is both the attacker and the victim. Compassion, though dark in its own way, is a necessary release, a silent permission to move forward, to engage with life, not as a wounded creature, but as a force in its own right. Responsibility is not erased by compassion. It's refined. It becomes something deeper, sharper, grounded in self-awareness rather than self-punishment. People cling to their guilt, wear it like armor, thinking it keeps them righteous, that it protects them from repeating their sins. But guilt distorts the lens, turns every reflection into a grotesque exaggeration of every flaw, every failure. Compassion, however, clears the view, brings the reality of one's choices into focus, without the smog of self-judgment. It's not an escape from consequence, but an embrace of it, a way to face oneself fully, without turning away in disgust. Compassion transforms responsibility into a deliberate choice, a conscious act, rather than a knee-jerk reaction driven by shame. When people hate themselves, every action is tainted, motivated by fear rather than strength. They act not out of clarity, but out of desperation, to prove, to appease, to punish. Compassion breaks this cycle, allowing action to come from a place of strength, of inner balance. It's not indulgence, not a gentle coddling of weakness. It's a ruthless acceptance of oneself, flaws and all, and the liberation to move forward unchained, unshadowed by the past. Compassion is a paradox, a fierce kindness, a mercy that demands accountability. It releases the self from hatred, not to absolve, but to empower, to replace weakness with resilience, shame with understanding. Compassion frees the mind from its own cruelty, transforming responsibility into something bearable, into something owned. It allows for movement, for growth unburdened by the weight of past mistakes, for choices made with clear intent. To feel compassion for oneself is not to be excused. It's to be released from the prison of self-inflicted torment, to emerge as something whole, untethered, and utterly responsible for everything that comes next. A still mind is a force of nature, a rarity in a world of constant noise, distraction, and frenzy. In stillness, the mind becomes something else entirely, an abyss, a chasm where chaos cannot touch, where every distraction falls silent. A mind like this is feared by the world. Discipline your thoughts like a weapon, sharp and unyielding, honed for action, not endless deliberation. A mind that aims and shoots, that commits without hesitation, carves its path through the chaos, undistracted, unflinching. Overthinking is the enemy, a slow poison that dulls the blade of intent, a trap laid by the timid who fear the weight of their own decisions. Those who linger, those who wait for perfect clarity, breed their own confusion, sink into failure, held back by the shackles of hesitation. To aim and shoot is the way of those who understand power, who understand that certainty is a lie, that clarity comes not from waiting, but from acting. Every thought must be aligned, disciplined, bent toward a purpose. The mind that drifts, that dithers, loses itself, becomes weak, a shadow of potential rather than a force. Thoughts are tools, instruments for execution, not for idle musings, not for endless analysis that leads nowhere. Indecision is the plaything of those who fear consequence, those who cannot bear the weight of their own will. Discipline cuts through this fog, demanding focus, demanding that the mind submit to a single course of action without the distraction of what-ifs. To aim and to shoot is to embrace power, to own one's choices without apology. to act in a world where hesitation is failure. Hesitation is the death of greatness. Every second spent second-guessing, every moment lost in endless calculation, is a step further from victory. The path to mastery is not in perfect planning, in endless revisions, but in movement, in momentum. To act is to assert control, to become the architect rather than the observer. Overthinking drains the soul, steals strength, feeds the mind with ghosts of paths unchosen. Those who think endlessly, waiting for perfection, for guarantees, will find only disappointment. Success belongs to those who shoot, who aim without obsession, who act without the weight of imagined consequences. The disciplined mind is a mind of force, a mind that knows hesitation is weakness, and that clarity is born of commitment, not contemplation. It's the mindset of the predator, not the prey, of one who knows that to hesitate is to lose. Indecision is the breeding ground for confusion, for doubt, for every weakness that lurks in the shadows. Discipline drives these shadows away, brings every thought into alignment, harnesses them as weapons aimed at a single target. This is the path of mastery, the path of strength, choosing to act, to execute, rather than drown in the depths of overanalysis.